Welcome to the Delvin Cox Experience, the podcast in which each week I am on a one-man mission to unite our culture through diversity. I'm your host, Delvin Cox, and this week I have a special guest. It's something a little different that people who know me know I love wrestling. So I'll let this gentleman introduce himself to you guys. Let him know who you are, brother.
How's it going, everybody? I am the social media superstar. Other people like to call me the glitch in the system. I am the Canadian champion of Premier Championship Wrestling. I am Jay Walker.
How you doing, brother? And welcome to the experience, by the way.
Yeah, man.
Great to have you on, by the way. It's great to have you on, man.
I'm excited about this. Let's do it.
Definitely. As always, we like to start the podcast off with the 5 for 5. 5 questions, 5 answers to get the ball rolling. Jay, are you ready?
I think so. Let's do this.
All right. Question number 1. What is the best album or song you listened to in the past year? Doesn't have to be new, by the way.
Oh, in the last year, man. I got a young daughter and a wife who control most of the music when we're on road trips. so Jay doesn't get a lot of choice, but I mean, being the wrestling guy, right? I'm listening to a lot of Mike Ruckus. He's doing his own stuff. He does the music for All Elite Wrestling. So I'm listening to a lot of that stuff usually when I'm like working out and stuff. So I have to give a shout out to Mikey. He's doing good stuff.
Okay. I like that a lot. Okay. Question number 2. Give me your Mount Rushmore of Canadian wrestlers.
Ooh, Bret Hart is number 1 without a doubt.
Of course.
Of course, yeah. And Owen's got to be number 2.
Okay, I like that as well.
Yeah. I grew up New Generation era, right? So those are my boys. Edge is one of the biggest inspirations as a teenager in my wrestling years. Man, that guy can go. Rounding out, man, number 4. I mean, there's so many of them, right?
Yeah, there's a lot of Canadian wrestlers.
Right,
They're all pretty good.
I'm going to go left field with this because I really love the gimmick growing up, and I always wish I would see more of these in wrestling, but the model Rick Martell. That guy's such an underrated performer, too. If you check out some of his stuff coming up before he hit WWE, man, that guy was the bomb.
I like Rick Martell a lot. I wish we would have got to see more with him in WWE.
Of course, yes.
Like the model was such a cool character to me in terms of him spraying the arrogance on people and things like that. And he was a great wrestler, by the way. Very good wrestler.
Definitely. Yeah. One of the most like iconic gimmicks of that time too, where the business was basically just all gimmicks. He's one of those that just stood out head and shoulders above the rest.
Yeah, by far. Definitely. Question number 3, and this is everybody's favorite question. What is the dumbest thing you think you've ever done as a kid?
Define kid. I've made a lot of dumb things over the years.
I always say college and under.
Okay. Backyard wrestling.
Let me say this before you say something.
Okay.
Don't say nothing that's going to get either one of us arrested.
No, for sure. Man, yeah, backyard wrestling. We used to do a lot of dumb stuff as kids. One thing that sticks out is because we sold out the crowd of all 12 people coming to watch this thing one summer. I jumped off the top of a baseball backstop. If you understand, we're going 20 feet up, right?
Yeah.
Jumping off. Guy obviously moved out of the way for it, but going for an elbow drop, and I just flat back bumped off a 20-foot backstop just because I had a crowd behind me. That's something that jumps out. Yeah, definitely won't be doing anything like that anytime soon in my wrestling career.
Okay. I like that. I like that a lot.
Question
number 4. Oh, go ahead. Oh, yeah, another story. Yeah. Let's go. Let's get it.
Another story. Not that it's something I'm proud of. It's not something that I did intentionally. But on my 16th birthday, it was a Wednesday because there was a weekly TNA pay-per-view. We're going back, obviously, a little bit. But I had to run a chore for my parents, which involved taking the vehicle. And, of course, being inexperienced, probably not a good idea. But pulled up, and my best friend was just in front of this building on his bicycle. And I'm about to pull in and park the vehicle. And my experience, a little bit of heavy foot, I drove over the sidewalk, drove right through my best friend and into this building. Yeah, on my 16th birthday. Luckily, nobody was hurt. Everybody was okay. Yeah, we were able to, we spent the night in the hospital, but everything was clear. We were still good friends, and I let him beat me for the rest of the week on any video game his choice to make up for it.
All right. Question number 4. This is going to be an interesting one.
Okay.
If you could put yourself in any wrestling era, as you now, by the way, you're not going into the 40s and being like an infant or anything like that. No. As you know to wrestle, what wrestling era would you want to wrestle in?
Oh, man.
And who would you want to wrestle from that era, by the way? Let me add that as another caveat.
And who? Man. I would have to say, I'm going to go New Gen again. Okay. I love my New Gen growing up. But instead of Bret Hart, I would love at least one match. With Shawn Michaels, just the absolute best, one of the biggest inspirations of mine growing up. I think that'd be a pretty cool experience.
I like that. I like that answer a lot. So to be clear, no New Jack.
Yeah, no. Not high on the list anyway. Maybe if I want to get out of the business, we'll do that.
All right. Question number 5. Zombie apocalypse step in the Walking Dead style. You're going to take 5 things with you to survive. Your family and pets automatically count. They come with you no matter what. What are the 5 things you take with you to survive? Anything you want, by the way.
Wow. That's a question you usually don't get on a wrestling podcast, that's for sure.
Yes.
Oh, man. I would say being the glitch, I would bring a computer, whether there's internet or not. I'm just a creative person. You give me a computer, I'll find myself ways just to keep sane in my little zone.
Okay.
Got a lot of things I could do with that, as long as there's power. Once I run out of that battery, I'm screwed. I'm gonna call it. Man, that's a tough one, man. I'm a weird guy where things don't really mean a whole lot to me. Man, that's tough. I should have listened to a few more of your podcasts to get some advice going into this.
No, I like that. I like this question because it has you have to think on your feet for it, and you have to think a lot of times people think fight or flight. I've had people say, you know what? If it's the Walking Dead universe, I'd rather just die. Like what?
No kidding. Yeah. I don't know. I'll bring a baseball bat with me or something like that.
So that's a good idea. A weapon. That's a sort of a weapon.
I'm gonna go swinging. Yeah, for sure. Man, that's the 2 things I can think of. I'm not a materialistic guy. I can't think of anything I'd want to bring with me other than weapons, really.
Well, pick up some weapons. You got to pick up some weapons that you want to take with you to survive.
Whatever I can find. Let's load up the truck and let's go Hulkamania on everyone.
I like that. So let me ask you this, brother. Let's get into the podcast. What was the first wrestling match you remember as a kid that made you say, you know what, I want to do this one day?
The one I remember most vividly, which it's weird that I brought up Rick Martell earlier, it was Rick Martell and Tatanka feuding over Tatanka's feather. I remember that old age-old storyline in the early 90s. Yeah. But I mean, we had all the Coliseum home video VHSs, so I was just watching those things religiously. So ever since I was aware of what's going on in the world, I've been watching pro wrestling. But that, for some reason, is one of the earliest memories that stick out for me.
And let me ask you this. Where did you grow up at?
I'm in the middle of nowhere in Canada. Everybody kind of hears about Winnipeg, Manitoba, Canada. I'm about 2 hours away from that. A very small rural community. I grew up with 400 people. I know absolutely everyone in this town. And
that's pretty cool.
Yeah, no, it's just this desolate little area that nobody knows about.
So I asked that because I wondered, did you get to see a lot of Canadian wrestling growing up? Was that a thing? Were you aware of Bret Hart and how people thought of Bret Hart and things like that, or some of the other wrestlers from Canada?
Right. So before I was born, the AWA was kicking around still. That's where like Hogan and Slaughter and all these guys kind of got their starts, right? And they would go to Winnipeg often, but they kind of dissipated by the time I became a wrestling fan around 1990. So I was not aware of any wrestling. The Hearts Wrestling, Stampede Wrestling, that's 13 hours away from me. It's like the other side of the country almost, right?
Yeah.
So there was no mainstream Canadian wrestling. There never has been. I grew up a wrestling fan. I was aware of WWE, WCW, ECW, all that stuff. There was no Canadian indies around that I knew of, that I was aware of. And but my goal, yet somehow, not knowing how to get into the business, was I'm going to be a professional wrestler. It was in university in Winnipeg at a late night class. It was like 8 p.m. Happened to go to the washroom, and there was a little tiny flyer, and it's advertising an independent show like a block away from the university with Samoa Joe and AJ Styles on it. Oh. And I was like, that's my in right there. And went to the website. I signed up. I went right away, just dove right in. And I discovered what independent wrestling is. I had never known of any independent scene before that. So it just blew my mind that this has been around for forever without me knowing about it. The internet's a crazy thing back in the early 2000s.
That had to be cool. Just like, hey, you can go see Samoa Joe and AJ Styles in the early 2000s.
Absolutely. Like top of their game. Absolutely. Yeah.
That's wild to think about. But I asked you earlier about that because growing up in the United States, right? I grew up in Miami, Florida.
Okay.
I was a wrestling fan. Not to give, well, it's not a big deal. I was born in the 80s, so I used to watch. I grew up watching WWE and WCW as a kid and stuff like that. And I remember specifically always hearing about Canada, and Canada kind of sounded like this great magical land of wrestlers where wrestling talent is completely bred there and things like that. And they made it seem like every corner had a wrestling school.
You know what? Like, it's weird because there is, like, every province, which is like your equivalent to a state down there, it has like this rabid fan base following these independent promotions. The problem is nobody knows, like, it's just the world's best kept secret. Every province has its own amazing wrestling promotion with stacked rosters of guys that can go at the levels of guys you see on TV. And nobody knows about us just because we're not on the pulse of traveling around to all these shows. There's just this big, weird, imaginary wall across the border, and nobody hears about these Canadian wrestlers.
Yeah, I feel like that's kind of a shame in terms of, like, if you look at all the incredible Canadian wrestlers, you name Bret Hart, you name Owen Hart, Lance Storm, Chris Jericho, the list can go on and on. You can make a top 10, top 20 list just off Canadian wrestlers alone.
Absolutely.
And I just feel like, I don't know, it's just weird when you think about it, how you say, like, oh, I didn't know this was a thing in Canada growing up. And
exactly. No, it's I was very aware growing up that the Canadian president of WWE, there was one at the time. There was just old relations through New York and the Toronto, they're kind of a hop and skip away from each other. There were some connections there, and Bret Hart was involved in that as well. And I remember Bret Hart training Test and the likes of those guys and kind of giving the thumbs up on some of those guys coming in. So maybe it has to do with the Hart family kind of falling apart with Vince. I'm not sure. And just that connection kind of got cut off, and it hasn't been repaired since, really. There have been a few great Canadian wrestlers to break that barrier, but man, out of the thousands and thousands that we see, it's a shame that there haven't been more.
Let me ask this question. I want to go back to this whole AJ Styles, Samoa Joe thing. What was that like, just going to an event like that? And did you, because you said early 2000s, right?
Yeah, we're talking 2000 and maybe but 2006, I believe, is the date.
So when watching those guys back then, did you know that they would be what they are today? Like AJ Styles and Samoa Joe are kind of considered legends.
Right, no, for sure. Man, like AJ was all the buzz back in the day, and Joe was like just coming up at that point in TNA. And I didn't even really have a lot of context to their ROH careers yet at the time because I'd never heard of them either. But yeah, man, to see how far they've come and just breaking the boundaries of that TNA to WWE threshold, the work that AJ did in Japan, it's just amazing that their work got recognized on a global platform rather than just, where they were doing their thing back then,
Definitely. So where did you get your training at, and how did that happen exactly? Because usually you hear the stories about, I had to pay $25 and all this stuff. Yeah, let me hear your wrestling story, how you got started.
Right. So I got that flyer right at the university, and so I emailed, I found the website, emailed the promoter right away that was listed on the website, and he told me to come check out the night before. That's when they set up the ring, and that's when the trainer comes and does his little training routine. And I show up, and there's two other guys. The ring's already set up. I thought I was getting there early. The ring's already set up. Two guys, and then the trainer pops in, and it's in this like dark, dusty bar. And we didn't even wrestle really. He just gave me like a big blow-up routine to see if I could hang with the boys, We're just talking squats and push-ups and sit-ups and jumping jacks, and like really just like a drill sergeant almost, just to see what it was like. And I remember at the end I felt pretty defeated, feeling like I wasn't good enough, like this was just it for me, this wasn't going to happen. And at the end of it, we sat down, we chatted a little bit, and went to the show the next day, obviously, and it was like, yeah, like I'm still 100% in on this thing. This is what I want to do. So I just kept at it, kept showing up every week, kept helping with the ring, figuring out the mechanics of how to put it together, and listening to guys. And it was, the guys were doing back body drop drills. And because I'd come in late into the training, I wasn't really learning a whole lot of the in-ring dynamics of it yet. But the guys were doing back body drop drills, and for some reason, they weren't able to complete the rotation. And I was young and stupid. I kind of laughed off and shook my head at one point. Probably not the right thing to do, because the trainer definitely caught that and called me up into the ring, just kind of called me out on it. And these guys were using a crash pad too, like a big inflatable mattress to land on to kind of protect themselves just in case they landed wrong. And they asked, Jay, do you want to show everybody your back body drop? And again, me being young, naive, and stupid, was like, yeah, sure. Just move the crash pad, though. I don't need that.
Oh, my God.
Right? But so I hit the ropes, and the guy does a great job of getting me up, and I'm 120 pounds soaking wet probably at that time. And sure enough, he shoots me over. We do the full rotation. I land flat perfectly, the perfect back body drop up. And he's just like, okay, you're training from now on full time. Here we go. So it's weird. And it's unfortunate, like that training dipped out. The trainer had an opportunity in Mexico, so he went and pursued that. And I don't blame him at all. I mean, you do you, right? So after that, I just spent years, like 3 solid years, just refereeing for the promotion. And being in the ring with, like, Samoa Joe came back a couple times. But being in the ring with the likes of Kenny Omega, I mean, it was his home promotion in Winnipeg. So that was a great learning curve. As long as all his friends are just as or almost as good as Kenny. So like these guys were great to study under as a referee, being in the ring, watching how these guys move and put things together. And after about 3 years, they just figured I'd paid my dues. They threw me in as manager. Manager gig got over. And could just kind of talked my way into getting a one-on-one match. I think it went like 5 minutes long, if I remember right. And they're like, you know what? Like, Jay can go. And I got so over it that they wanted to put me in the ring with the Honky Tonk Man, who was coming to town pretty soon for a show. And that was the point where somebody, a veteran, his name's Outlaw Adam Knight, I'll give him a shout out, pulled me aside and says, okay, you got this opportunity. We're going to make sure you're ready for it. And he showed me the basics. He put everything together to make sure I'd be solid and ready in my like 3rd, 4th, maybe 5th match to wrestle a WWE legend. And it went off great. The training worked. And man, it's weird. I sort of snuck in through this back door, but everything just seemed to sort of work out. Like people just saw that I had this amazing work ethic, and I was able to adapt and learn and do things my way. And I mean, I'm still here.
You just dropped 2 incredible name drops just there.
I know.
It just breathed over. Yeah, I started out wrestling. Everything was cool. I was in the ring with Kenny Omega, the AEW champion. No big deal. Yeah, I know it was his company. Whatever. Just Kenny Omega. Then on top of that, one of my first matches I had was with, WWE legend, the Honky Tonk Man.
Yeah,
That's amazing.
The Honky Tonk Man one's funny because we're backstage. He's going over the match. He's booking the whole thing left, right, and center. Right before we go out, I just told him, like, hey, like, this is like my third, fourth, fifth time in the ring here. And he just looked at me like, oh, no. Here we go. But no, he was great. He took great care of me. Kenny's wild, man. Like, that was my second ever match, actually, was against Kenny Omega. He just needed a light guy that could just follow instructions and take care of him because he had to go do some DDT stuff in Japan at the time. He was trying to make a name for himself out there still. He wasn't quite at New Japan. And he just said, can I work Jay? And they're like, yeah, if you want. Like, and he wound up putting me over after the match. He says, yeah, like, the kid can go. Like, he can listen well and throw him in there. So I owe a lot to Kenny, actually.
That is wild. The fact that you just said, oh, yeah, my second match, Kenny Omega. No big deal.
It was nothing special. It's no 6-star classic, but to get in the ring with him and to get the approval and like I said, just having years of learning from watching him in the ring, being in the ring with him, watching everything that he does, is just a great learning experience for sure.
That's awesome. Let me ask you this, because I think this is an interesting question I wanted to bring up earlier. Mm-hmm. What do you think is the hardest thing you had to learn in wrestling?
I don't want anybody who wants to be a wrestler to take this the wrong way, because I think the basics of, like, learning the fundamentals and getting in there and really appreciating the movements and the footwork and the teamwork and everything involved to make it wrestling look like wrestling. But I think the biggest thing I've learned, the most important thing is doing the work to put yourself over, because nobody else is going to go to bat for you but you. So you really got to put in the effort to make a name for yourself, because, like I said, nobody else is going to do that work for you. And that's what I'm finding out now, and that's what I'm doing now.
Yeah, I think I agree with that. I think that's something I noticed with wrestling, that you have to kind of put in that work to get what you want from it. And when people don't put in that work, it's noticeable. Like, one of the simplest things I notice a lot of times is how people run the ring ropes. You can see when somebody knows what they're doing when they run the ring ropes the right way and the wrong way.
Absolutely, yep.
So let me ask you about this. You done wrestled Honky Tonk Man. You done wrestled Kenny Omega. What happens after that? You're still new at this point. Like I said, your second match is Kenny Omega. Your fifth match is Honky Tonk Man. At this point in time, you have to be thinking, like, this is going really good. What's next from there in the story?
Right. Being in the moments, you don't realize the kind of opportunities that are in front of you. It's later when you have the chance to reflect that you're like, wow, like, I did that. That happened. After that, it was like, yeah, I got to roll up my sleeves and actually figure out how to do this without being led and held by the hand by some of the best, in the business. So being thrown in there with some guys that have been around for a long time is a great learning experience. Getting in with younger guys that were passionate and hungry as I am, that pushed each other hard to the next level and trying to, like, steal the show every single time, performance after performance, building respect with the audience to look at you, especially after being a referee for 3 years. Like, they looked at me as that guy for a little while, but this to earn the respect as a pro wrestler, and hearing them excited to see me against other guys that have been around the scene for years, that was a whole nother conquest in and of itself. Of course, I don't know if everyone's going to see it that hears this, but I've got this Canadian championship around my shoulder. And I remember when I went to that website that first night, when I saw that flyer and I looked at the roster and who was all on there in the championships. And I was like, man, like, I don't know, like, these dudes are bigger. Again, I started out, I was 120 pounds and I wasn't getting very much bigger, very much faster. I just wasn't that kind of guy. But it was like, how do I get to that? How do I get to a championship? How can I be one of those guys? And it took some grinding, took a lot of work, took a lot of bumps, but I got my first Canadian title, and that was cool. Then I got my second, and then my third, and now I'm hanging on to it for the fourth time. and it's crazy that looking back that for more than half of the days of my career as a professional wrestler, I don't know the exact numbers right now, but I've spent it as the Canadian champion, which is like the second best championship in the PCW promotion. So it just goes to show that they have faith in me, to not only carry a belt and trust that I look like a champion going out there, but that I can take new talent now. You know, I've been around for a couple of years. I can take that new talent and shine them up and propel them into whatever's next for them. That's been a big goal of mine as far as in-ring. As far as out at ring, I want to be the guy. I want to be a part of this mission to break down that invisible wall that lies between Canada and the US. I want Canadian talent to thrive. I want them to succeed. I want all the eyes on us so that we get equal opportunities, just like everyone down south.
Yeah, I think that's a cool idea. I like what you're talking about. I feel like now is the best time. Well, not now specifically because of COVID, but before COVID happened, we were kind of seeing a boom in wrestling in terms of that. Like, AEW at that time just started up. It was catching on fire before all this COVID-19 stuff happened. And they kind of opened the door, it seemed like, for other wrestlers from indie promotions to kind of get a shot, where I felt like at that time WWE wasn't really doing that. Even with NXT. NXT kind of brought in a certain amount of wrestlers and you kind of knew who they were already. Whereas AEW, I feel like every time especially back then before COVID-19 happened, I would see people I've never seen before on TV, and they would get matches on either AEW, Dark, or the whole thing. Well, I want to talk about with you, with the whole Cody Rhodes and the Open Challenge thing. I thought that was really cool, and I was excited for it because I wanted to see who else was coming in the challenge. So what is it like now for you in terms of, or back then at least, in terms of the indie scene and seeing a company like AEW come to prominence?
It was amazing, especially with my connection to Kenny, here in Winnipeg, and just watching them get to this level on the independent scene and Japan and ROH and everything, and just turn it into this rival promotion, like the number 1-2 promotion in the world overnight through their name recognition. And then for them to be so selfless and so encouraging of the scene, like I don't like to trash WWE, but I mean, there's a lot of broken things over the years. The way they develop talent can be looked at, that it's not perfect. The way they scout talent even, it's very hard to get there. You have to be a very special superhuman almost to get to that level in a lot of respects. So AEW didn't want to do that, and you could tell they wanted to bring the entire independent and every other promotion around the world up with them. And so they literally opened the doors to anyone who had the ambition and drive to show up, and there'd be opportunities there. And like you said with the Cody thing, I mean, unsigned talent getting championship matches that go 15-20 minutes sometimes is insane.
Pretty cool.
It's never been done before, and it did create that buzz and excitement because everyone was wondering who's next. And look what happened to a lot of those guys. Ricky Starks is one of the biggest names now in AEW. He's about to wrestle Sting on pay-per-view. Eddie Kingston got a world title shot in the main event of a pay-per-view against Jon Moxley. Warhorse, man, there was just this surge of everyone just wanted to see that kid succeed and get the opportunity, and he got the shot, and it was such a big deal. Man, I obviously was chomping at the bit, I threw my name in the hat, and I was pretty close too. And I know they've seen my stuff, but it's a question of, again, with that invisible wall, was that the only thing preventing me from making it to that next step? But it's very exciting.
I feel like if COVID wouldn't have happened, we would have probably saw that.
Maybe. I don't know what their plans were, but yeah.
Yeah, but because it felt like that was the thing that would have continued on. and with the whole COVID-19, because when that was happening, I want to say that was around the time, the early stages of it.
I think they were kind of like just coming out of the first wave there, and things were starting to look promising for people. So things were kind of opening up. At least they weren't here, anyways. I'm not sure that area, but yeah, no, it's and then all of a sudden that second wave hit, and it just everything went back down shut.
Yeah. But yeah, I like the fact, and just go back on the WWE thing a minute. I love WWE. I love AEW, but to me, WWE feels like McDonald's in terms, and that's not a knock on McDonald's.
I love McDonald's at all. Yeah.
It just feels like you kind of know what you're getting with WWE at this point. They're gonna give you what there is: high quality wrestling, high spots, certain things, certain characters. They kind of build it's sports entertainment at this point.
Yeah.
Where I feel like AEW is trying something different and thinking outside the box, and I like the fact that they are reaching out to wrestlers who are not necessarily signed and giving them shots and opportunities, and then if they work out, hey, you can get somebody like a Ricky Starks and put them on AEW TV, or you can do the cool thing where you have Thunder Rosa just show up there and recognize her as, hey, this is the champion from another promotion. She's awesome. This is why she's awesome. And they can build her up as somebody that you get used to seeing on your TV. And I just think that's super cool.
Absolutely. It worked so well in the 70s and 80s with Ric Flair. You'd see Ric Flair on TV, and then he would come to your local gymnasium and wrestle a guy for an hour. You know, they're doing that again. And it's putting these guys who aren't signed, or, you know, giving them the chances, or even having some of their signed talent go to independent shows. It really is going to create a lot of excitement. And when things open up again, I guarantee they're going to go back to it. It's just going to be a lot of buzz around the indie scene, even more so than there was before, you know?
Yeah, I agree. Let me ask you this, since we talked about it earlier. What is it like for you trying to wrestle in this COVID-19 era that we're dealing with right now?
We haven't done, I actually haven't wrestled for a full year.
Wow.
Yeah.
That sucks.
It does. Somebody put it today, actually, I read that you've probably saved years of my life doing so, saving from the bumps and stuff. But no, yeah, it's heartbreaking. I was on the cusp of so much, you know. I was about to head down south to Mania weekend. I was in talks with some big name talents about flying down there. Even when COVID was around, it was like, okay, like flight prices are dropping, you know, it was my chance to jump, but it wasn't safe and smart to do it at the time. But I had big opportunities down there. I've got opportunities in New York and Toronto and everything, just like waiting. But that's all I'm doing right now is waiting. So I'm just going to keep doing my thing on social media and keep trying to build my name up, and hopefully more opportunities will be there when things do open up.
I'm glad you mentioned that, because one of the things I think a positive that came out of COVID-19 is the fact that so many wrestlers, whether they're main roster or indie, have kind of started their own YouTube channels, much like yourself, and kind of almost built their personality on their own. And I think it's super cool to see that. Like back in the day when I used to watch wrestling and stuff like that, what we saw on WCW or WWE was that character. Whether it was Hulk Hogan talking about the 20-inch pythons or Ric Flair's woo, we didn't really get to see another side of the wrestler, and like seeing wrestlers play. Look at this wrestler play Fortnite or something like that, or being the elite, for example. I think it's cool what you are doing with your YouTube channel. So let me just stop talking, let you explain what your YouTube channel is for those who don't know.
No, for sure. I've always been an advocate of social media ever since it kind of came to prominence, right? I remember I was in PCW. It was like 2007 or 8. And I'm like, we need to get on this Facebook, this Twitter thing. We need to figure this out. We need to go and create more awareness. And not everyone was super behind that idea. But I jumped on it, and I kept learning over the years. And finally, it would have been 3 years ago now. I'm just like, I'm going. It was actually All In, the pay-per-view All In, that before AEW was a thing. I just saw these guys that booked a pay-per-view around a YouTube show that sold out like in minutes. And I'm like, this is exactly what I've been preaching, you know? And I didn't know how to execute, and I didn't have the team around me to execute either. So I'm just like, you know what? I'm going to go all in on me. I'm going to do my own thing. I'm going to grab a camera. I'm going to start recording backstage. I'm going to have it follow me to the ring. I'm going to have it follow me out of the ring. I'm going to film stuff at home. I'm going to be, doing promos, character work, interviews, everything that I can do. Just throw it at the wall and let's see what people really are into. And so I started this unhacked vlog on YouTube, and it just blew up like instantly. Having Kenny Omega around doesn't hurt sometimes. That people kind of, will latch onto it to try to get a glimpse into him and as much wrestling as he does on the side. And it just kind of snowballed from there as far as the awareness of what I was doing and what PCW, the company I work for, was doing. And I've been keeping busy ever since. I've been able to have so many new opportunities. I met so many amazing new people, even like yourself, through all of these channels. And it just keeps growing. And it's because I'm putting in the effort of, like I said earlier, just promoting myself and putting myself out there for people to find me.
Yeah, and I think that's really cool. Where would you want to take your YouTube channel in terms of how far do you want to take it with this channel? How far you want to go with it?
I'll bring it with me. I've done some crazy stuff that I think a lot of old school wrestlers would frown upon, but I just think there's this level of intrigue and fascination. We know so much already, as fans, about the behind the scenes of what goes on in professional wrestling, but there's always more that you can let in. And I don't think it kills the business whatsoever by exposing things. Instead, I think that you kind of hinted at it, is that you see this human side of professional wrestling that we don't get to see, this brotherhood of professional wrestling that we don't really get to see. So, for example, we filmed, I just had this big match against a rival I'd been feuding with for 5 or 6 months, and match went off amazing. Crowd popped huge for everything. And the camera actually followed me to the back, and you see the guy I just finished wrestling out there huffing and puffing backstage. And we're sitting there catching our breaths, but we just had a moment together. We just embraced and, thank you for everything. This was great. Great working with you. You just saw this human side of wrestling behind the scenes that you don't really get to see. And I think that kind of stuff is neat because you're giving the fans a different window to appreciate what it is that we do.
Yeah, I agree. And I think I'm going to call a spade a spade. Kayfabe is kind of dead now.
It was dead a long time ago.
Yeah, if WWE had documentaries where you see The Undertaker just talking in his regular voice and
or the cameos for what was it, AEW Scooby-Doo or whatever.
Yes,
the thing was.
Yeah, so it's not like people are like, oh, those guys really hate each other. No, it's not. That's not really a thing anymore. You see Xavier Woods in the Up Down Down channel. You see him playing games with not only his rivals but wrestlers from other companies and things like that. So
it's no longer the wrestling bubble either. Now you've got gamers finding out about this guy and wanting to see this guy succeed within his world of pro wrestling. It's new channels and new people that are coming to respect and understand the people as humans, and then wanting to see them in their form of entertainment do their thing. And that's how you get new people in,
Yeah, and I think it's cool. I feel like we're at that point now where wrestling is, well, at least you have this older generation, the guys who like the old school wrestling, and they who complain about it, about what wrestling is today, say, oh, it's all nothing but flips and all this stuff. But then you have a younger generation who kind of grew up off the Kenny Omegas, the AJ Styles, who want to see more of that stuff and want to see more of who the wrestler actually is. So I feel like we're in that transitional period where you're starting to see a younger generation of fans come in. And I think AEW kind of popped up at the perfect time for that.
I think so. And to your point, there is this group of fans that want to see the human being. There's this other group of fans who respect just the character, and they're totally cool. Trying to like a Danhausen or a Warhorse, they're their character 24/7, and they're still enjoying that aspect. The old school, new school, that'll always be there. It always has been there. I appreciate a good story, actually. over style. But man, like the style that's being pumped out now by some guys making waves on the indies and even on television now is just light years ahead of where we were even 10 years ago. So it's amazing to see that stuff too.
I agree. I definitely agree with that. Let me ask you this. What has been your favorite match you've had thus far?
I always get pinned with this one. The one that always jumps out the most, and it is because it is the best story if you have the context of what got us to that point. I was against this young kid. He was not even a year into his wrestling career yet. Xiao Ming, just this little Asian kid, trained by Lance Storm freshly. Everyone just loved him, the ultimate underdog, right? And I was this suit-wearing, psychotic heel, and man, we gave him this solid 10 minutes in the ring. The place was packed. They thought the match was over, but we were just getting started, and we kept giving him curveball after curveball after curveball in the story. And by the end of it, you hear one guy specifically, and it'll stand with me for the rest of my life. The one guy in the audience just stood up and says, like, I'm so emotionally invested in this right now. This is amazing. that was my, like, I didn't care about cheers. I didn't care. That was like, wow. Like, I'm glad somebody got it on the level that I wanted them to get it on. I do have it on YouTube if you want to check it out. It is just
I definitely do.
Amazing. Yeah, for sure.
So let me ask you this then.
Yeah.
Who would you want to wrestle in the future?
We're talking anybody?
Anybody.
I have to, it's been on my bucket list since I was a little kid, and with the gates being open and all those forbidden doors open and everything, I have to go with the boy I idolized growing up, being around that Winnipeg area, and say Chris Jericho.
I like that. Let me see. I didn't want to mention it, but since you mentioned, I'm going to mention it. What do you think of this whole forbidden door thing being open now? You seeing New Japan on AEW on New Japan, Impact on AEW. I think it's awesome. I think it's super cool.
It is 100%. For the diehard fans that know everything going on, this is absolutely amazing. For new fans, it might be a little confusing. Where are they coming from? What's that? But as far as what it's going to do for pro wrestling as a whole, this is nothing but an absolute positive.
Yeah, and I think I'll even go as far as saying that it would be cool because Kenny Omega said something when this first started, like, hey, I want to get all the belts. I kind of want to see him try.
Oh, absolutely.
I kind of want to see him just go to random companies and say, I want to challenge a champion. And whether he succeed or not, I think that'd be cool. Just a good rub.
And not only being able to do it, but understanding the context of what he had to do to get it done. He literally was the absolute best professional wrestler on the planet, so much so that they would build the number 2 wrestling promotion in North America and be so good that every other promotion in the entire world wants to work with him.
Yeah.
Like, that's insane to think about.
Yeah, and when you think about it, man, if you look at AEW champions, they've done a great job of building them up. Whether you look at the first one, Chris Jericho, then you go from Chris Jericho to Jon Moxley, then you go from Jon Moxley to freaking Kenny Omega. It's super cool what they're doing in terms of that.
And they're all killing it. They're all killing it.
Yes, I like it. So let me ask you this. What are you going to do if Kenny Omega comes for your belt?
I think he's got some much bigger fish to fry. If he comes forward, though, I'm absolutely game. It has been a long time since we've had a one-on-one match. I think our last match together was probably 3 or 4 years ago. We were in a tag team match, and it is always a pleasure to get in the ring with him. He's fun to work with. He's literally the perfect wrestler. So you know he's going to be there for you. And you just do your best to take care of him because, again, he's making much bigger money than I am in the bar on a Saturday night.
Definitely. So let me ask you this then. Who would you want to work with besides Kenny Omega and the Elite in AEW if you got the opportunity?
Man, there's so
And Jericho,
many.
of course, because you said Jericho, so.
Yeah, Jericho, of course. Joey Janela is a guy I've always had a good vibe about. We haven't seen the brilliance of Joey Janela yet in AEW, but him on the Indies, he was a force to be reckoned with. He just has this natural ability to connect with the audience and tell you a story and just do some crazy stuff that you'll be talking about next week to your friends who aren't even wrestling fans because it was that crazy. That's the way I try to tackle pro wrestling. So I feel like me and him are very much are very similar in that way, in the way that we think. I mean, I can go with Sammy Guevara, just a young kid with all the potential in the world. Darby Allin's got the coolest mystique of any wrestler I've seen in the last 5 years. Cody, obviously, I put my name in the hat for the challenge, and I think me and him very much respect the old school element of wrestling so much that we would really put on an insane matchup that people would be into. I could keep going, but those are the ones off the top of my head.
Okay. Before we go, I want you to give me a crazy indie wrestling story.
Like personal with me?
Personal. Yeah, with you. Yeah, with you. Something that happened with you on the indie scene coming up, something wild that people wouldn't expect us or anything like that.
Man. I mean, I have had some crazy stuff happen. It's not really a good story though. You're making me think, man. Let's go back to that zombie question. That might be easier. No, man, crazy indie story. Okay, I got one.
Okay.
We were doing this big show. All these names were in from like every generation of wrestling. There was Billy Gunn and Rikishi and Ultimo Dragon and just a bunch of them. And there was a big Royal Rumble in the main event with all these guys. Just an insane, huge budget show. But it was minus 45 degrees Celsius. I can't translate that to Fahrenheit for you, but really freaking cold. Colder than what Texas is experiencing right now. Okay. Yeah. We had to haul this ring from a trailer in that weather up 11 flights of stairs because the pieces wouldn't fit in the elevator. When you hear of them putting together the ring on Monday Night Raw, they're lucky because they had the elevator like in the early 90s when they were doing it at the Manhattan Center. We couldn't fit things in the elevator, so we went up 11 flights of stairs with this ring. It took us all day. Like, it was 10 minutes till bell time. The ring finally got put together, and the show was going good. But there was the Royal Rumble main event is what I wanted to get to. And it's been a long day for everybody. You know, the show, I think, was like going over 3 hours now. And Jerry the King Lawler actually just finished wrestling a match. And he got geared down, and he's busy talking with a couple of the other guys that he hasn't seen in a while. And Brian Christopher, his son, taps me on the shoulder and says, "I want you to go and do a favor for me." He says, "Go to my dad and let him know that he's on next in the Rumble." And he's already geared down already, right? So like me, and I'm like 2 years into the business, and I've got to go rib Jerry the King Lawler, who's still commentating for Monday Night Raw at the time. So I go, I'm game. I get a good rib. I think it's pretty funny, and it's harmless. I go and I tap Jerry on the shoulder, and he goes, "Yeah." I was like, "Jerry, what are you doing?" And he's sort of like confused. "What's going on?" I said, "You're next in the Rumble. Like, you're on in a minute." And he's in a panic looking for the nearest gear bag with anything that would fit him, where he was about to have a heart attack. And all of a sudden, you just hear the cackle, like the infamous little cackle from Brian Christopher in the corner. He's like, "That little bugger told you to do that, didn't he?" I was like, "Yes, I am so sorry, sir." He thought it was pretty ballsy of me to do that. So when it was time for the after party, we actually sat down, me and Lawler, for the next like 3 hours, and we had a steak and we watched the UFC pay-per-view together. And it was just great to pick his mind after. But he said, like, for a young kid, that was pretty ballsy to do. That's one of my wildest stories anyways.
I think that's the perfect way to end this episode, man. That's an awesome story, man. Just even the inclusion of Brian Christopher, man. That's amazing. That's super cool.
For sure. That's a guy who was always good to me when he was in town. He was a good guy.
Definitely, man. So let them know where to find you at for those who want to check out your YouTube and watch some of your old matches and things like that, and watch some of your new matches, hopefully, as soon as this COVID thing's over with.
Right. So it's super easy to find me because it's the same username on everything, whether it's Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, or YouTube. It's all I am Jay Walker, which is spelled I-A-M Jay Walker. I put up a regular video. I've got tons of stuff in the library as far as matches, promos, my opinions sometimes on things going on in the pro wrestling scene. I've got a Patreon set up if you want to go there. I've got some unreleased matches, some behind the scenes. I do commentary on all my matches, so you really get what was going on behind the scenes, or get some more context to what the local Winnipeg wrestling scene is like. There's a lot of fun stuff. I'm fun. I'm always up for a chat. I'm not one of those wrestlers that will ignore the fans. I am full in on social media. I am very approachable, and I love doing it.
This has been awesome, brother. Gotta have you back on soon, man. This has been a blast, man.
Yeah, let's do it.
Definitely. Thank you for coming on. And as always, Delvin Cox Experience, we are out. Peace.